Hey, good morning everyone. So here is our first video lesson for online learning for algebra. We are starting our new topic of quadratic functions, and before we can jump into the functions, we have to understand what polynomials are. So our first couple of weeks we're just going to be working with polynomials and how do we identify them, how do we classify them, and then how do we add, subtract, and multiply. So first thing we are going to be doing today is classifying and identifying polynomials. So hopefully you've already done the vocab activity where I'm asking you to define those terms so you know what those words mean. Alright, so now we're going to jump into how do we classify polynomials. So I did bring my notebook home. So I will be taking notes in our notebook. If you can do the same, that would be great. If you can't, that's all right. I will have copies of our notes on our classroom website for you to look at anytime you need them. All right. So when we are classifying our polynomials, there are two things that we're going to be looking at. The first thing we're going to be looking for is the degree and what classification there will be. Now remember, the degree of a polynomial is what is the exponent raised to of the variable. Alright, so if there is 0, we know that that's the constant. If it is a 1, that is linear. If it's 2, that is quadratic, and that's going to be our best friend for the next month and a half as we go through this unit. If it is to the third degree, we call that cubic. If it's to the fourth degree, quartic. And then 5, and that is a polynomial degree of 5, excuse me. So then when we get to 6, polynomial degree of 6. And then the same thing, etc. Alright. The second way we classify polynomials is by the number of terms. Alright, so our first term is just, when there's one term, it's just a monomial. 2 terms, binomial. 3, trinomial. 4 or above is a polynomial. Alright, there are a couple of exceptions you need to know. The first one is it is not a polynomial when, so you cannot divide by a variable. So for example, if you see something like 8 over x squared, that is not a polynomial. Alright. The other exception is that you cannot have a negative exponent. So, for example, something like x to the negative third power, not a polynomial. Alright, so a couple of things to be aware about when we are classifying. Alright, so when we are looking to identify, so now we're on page 110, when we are identifying polynomials. All right. So we want to, let's see, we have the example of 2x cubed minus 5xy plus 4y plus 9. And we remember from last year that none of these are like terms, right? We have x to an exponent, we have y by itself, we have a constant, and we have times x and y. So none of these are like terms, right? If we wanted to find the degree of each term, we would have, so our 2x cubed, the degree is 3. The degree of negative 5xy, because remember, the sign in front of the term follows that term. So even though it says minus 5xy, when we take that term by itself, it becomes negative 5x to the 5xy. This is a degree of 2 because x is to the first power and y is to the first power. And we know from our property of exponents that this is really 1 plus 1 for our exponents, which gives us our degree of 2. 4y is only 1 degree, and that 9 is a constant, it doesn't have any variables, is to the 0, right? Because we know this is like 0 to the, or y, oh, sorry guys, is 9 times x to the 0 power, because we know that x to the 0 power is 1, so this is saying 9 times 1. And we know the identity property of multiplication is the same as 9, which gives us our degree of 0. Right? So what is the degree of the whole polynomial? Three. Our constant is 9, and our leading coefficient is 2, because it is the coefficient of the largest degree. Okay? So, when we want to practice a little bit more, bringing everything together, that we are going to identify by the degree and by the number of terms. Remember, when we're classifying, we want to do the degree and by the number of terms. So, for example, we have 3x squared minus 5x. All right, well, I have a degree of 2, that's my highest degree, and there are 2 terms. There are 2 terms. So this is a linear, right, 2 degree, or quadratic binomial. All right. What if I just had a number by itself? Well, there's only one. Only one. It's a monomial, and it's a constant, right? It's just a plain number by itself. So it is a 0 degree. So a constant monomial. We start getting a little bit more complex as life goes on. Negative 4x to the third plus 6x squared plus 3x plus 7. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, and my highest degree is 3. So that would be a third degrees cubic. 4 terms. It is a polynomial. So we are going to call this one a cubic polynomial. Alright, and the last one we're going to do together here, 5x plus 3x to the 4th minus 2x squared. Well, this one is not in order by degree. That's okay. But we can see that to the 4th degree here, and there is 1, 2, 3 terms. So this is a quartic trinomial. Alright, so your actual homework, after you've done the vocab and you viewed this video on how to classify and identify polynomials, your homework is in Google Classroom. There is a Google Sheet where you are just typing in the name, just like we did on this example here. You are typing in the name of the polynomial.